Really? The title of the video is Romancing the Straw Hat. That is what we've gotten down. Are we out of ideas? Is there literally nothing else for me to... Okay. I guess I'll go along with it. I've done weirder shit on this show, probably at some point. Let's romance the Straw Hat. So this is nice, isn't it? Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, you know? I hear you were, Rogers and Shanks's hat before Luffy. That must have been an interesting experience. Right, probably shouldn't bring up your exes. That's not a great idea. What are some of your interests? What do you like to do? I mean, I know your hats. I know people like to wear you, but not wear you like that. I mean, just, you know, like, what else do you like to do for fun? I'm not a fan of this. Do you like this? Or, I guess not, because you're not touching it. Not that you have to. Where is that waiter, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it went well. I just don't think she was that into me. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna call me back. But, anyway, no, we're not talking about romancing the Straw Hat. I mean, you could try that if you want. I don't know how far you're going to get. But no, we're talking about romancing the Straw Hats. You see, it's the added S at the end that really adds it to be like, okay. So, interesting thing. Whenever you have a large cast of characters as, like, the main focus of a story, which I would imagine most shonen manga tend to do, things tend to happen in the fandom, as in shipping. You know, you'd be like, oh, wouldn't it be cute if this character got together with this character, and so and so. Now, there's two ways to approach this. There's either the way that, you know, like Hiro Mashima approaches it in Fairy Tail, where he will directly, you know, oh yeah, these two characters are definitely getting together in Fairy Tail, like Levi and Gajeel. They are an item, and that's been expounded upon already. Even after Fairy Tail ended, Hiro went out of his way to draw Lucy and Natsu's child and what she would look like. So, you know, he does stuff like that, and there's other series that do that as well. Like, they actually pair up, like the author themselves have something in mind for who's going to get together with who. Then you could do it the Oda route with it, where he doesn't even really touch upon the subject at all. In fact, he even came out in an SBS, and I have it right here. I've read this before on the internet. Like, I've read people saying that Oda has come out and said, oh, I'm not going to romance the Straw Hats. It's never going to happen. It's not that kind of story. That's the way I've always interpreted it when reading it, like, from a third-party, you know, source. But I just realized I'd never actually tracked down the SBS where he actually said that, and really, you know, in his own words. You know, I always took it to mean what it meant on the internet. So I finally did that for the purposes of this video. I tracked it down. It's an SBS in volume 34, right between chapter 317 and chapter 318. And this is the question. Do the Straw Hats ever fall in love? Aren't there any romantic intrigues on the ship? Sanji is exempt from this question, of course. I'm just a bit curious. Okay, so that question isn't like, hey, Oda, are any of the Straw Hats banging behind the scenes that we're just not aware of? You know, like, oh, the Straw Hats are having fun on Alabasta. Okay, well, it's gonna be a while till we get to Jaya, so... No, it was just a curious question. I mean, we're up to 300-something chapters in the series at this point, and, you know, a lot of time that the Straw Hats are spent sailing on the Going Merry or the Thousand Sunny, we don't really know all the time that goes in there, because usually Oda will just flash forward. You know, I think it was like between Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, they were sailing for, I think, weeks, or at least a few days to get there, right? So Oda's not going to focus on like, all right, here's another chapter of the crew just sailing, nothing interesting happening, just sailing. I would prefer that every now and then, just to, you know, strengthen the crew dynamic and, you know, how they interact with each other on the daily basis, but you understand why, as an author, you gotta keep the story moving. So this is somebody that's just curious, like, does it ever happen, you know? And this is Oda's response to it, and it's a lot more like a joke kind of response. Not like he wasn't serious, but it wasn't as serious as I originally intended it to be. This is Oda's response. Of course, they're all in love. With their grand adventure, that is. Oh, wait, no, there was more. There was one little note he put below that. Oda wrote, so witty, and with an arrow. So that was his response to that question. So, like, Yeah, you could pretty much take that to mean Oda's like, yeah, I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do it. We're never going to have an arc where, like, Luffy confesses his undoing love for Nami or anything like that, or vice versa. We're not going to do that. That's not the focus of the manga. The focus of the manga is their adventure and their friends. They're Nakama. They're like family. That's the way I want to interpret it. So that's that. But it wasn't like a direct, serious answer either. It wasn't like, my idea for One Piece, my idea what this manga is supposed to be about, it doesn't really connect well with the whole romance subplot thing. I'm not really going to do it. So he just never touches upon it, to the point where the main character, Luffy, I've mentioned this before, Luffy is essentially asexual. I mean, he really doesn't have any sort of, like, sex drive or anything. That's why when I read that Nami and Luffy fanfic, it was really hard finding a good one, because writing Luffy in that context, it's so alien. It's just, it comes off as like Luffy would never be the person to, like, initiate anything. He would be just so oblivious to anything. It's crazy. But that fanfic that I did read managed to make it work as best as humanly possible, okay? So it's hard. Now, of course, you have, like, Sanji and Brook, who very clearly have sex drives, and it's very clearly that, Sanji and Brook are just swoon away by Nami and Robin's feminine wiles and everything like that. And right, so if you were like, I personally ship Sanji with Nami. That's what I do there. So is Oda ever going to reference that at all? I mean, he kind of did reference it during Totland, and that was actually one of the, like, a really cool scene, where it was the scene when they were at Beige's castle, and this is after Sanji finally decided to come back to the crew after Luffy and Sanji had their tearful, reunion in the rain and everything like that, and he decided, I'm gonna go back to the crew, like, he wants to return. There was that moment where they're at Beige's castle, and Sanji sees Nami, and she's wearing her lovely evening dress that they gave her, and they're just kind of walking down the hallway at each other, and you could tell the apprehension is like you could cut it with a freaking knife. It's just like, oh crap, because the last time Sanji and Nami met each other, it was back during when they arrived from the seducing woods, and Nami slapped him in the face and everything, because Sanji was trying to, like, no, I gotta stay with the German now, I'm out of this, I'm done playing pirate, and Nami was really upset by that. So they had that moment there where it was very tense, but at the same time, she let it known, like, I'm glad you're back, but if you ever do something like that again, I'll never forgive you. That kind of attitude. So Oda references it in those kind of roundabout ways where it's like, they do care for each other. I would say they care for each other more than just, like, ordinary friends do, but that's just me. But if you want to interpret it another way, they're just family, and she felt betrayed because someone she considers family, did all these things that were, like, offensive, like, oh, I don't like to play pirate, I'm out of here, I'm done, and that hurt her feelings. You can understand that way as well. So, I'm actually happy with the way that Oda does this. Oda is a smart dude when it comes to manga. He's no stranger to this. He's written manga before One Piece. One Piece is obviously just far and above the most famous thing that he's ever going to do. Even if One Piece ends and Oda decides to take, I say even if One Piece ends, because you never know. It could still be going. But no, when One Piece ends in a few decades or so, and I don't know if Oda would even want to write another series after that. I'm sure the money he made from One Piece will make him, he'll be able to live a comfortable life for the rest of his existence. But let's say after a few years of writing One Piece, Oda wants to write another manga. Even if it's a really good manga, probably not going to be as good as One Piece, because One Piece is just huge, right? But he's smart enough to realize, like, okay, the fans are going to ship my characters whether I want them to or not, or whether I like this particular pairing or I don't like this particular pairing. Every pairing under the sun is gonna be done. There's Luffy x Nami, there's Nami x Zoro, there's Nami x Sanji, there's I don't know who you ship Chopper with exactly, but he's probably in there too. There's other sections of the internet for that. It's like, so I think Oda is aware of that, so he's like, you know what? I'm just not even gonna go there outside of just, like, the really overt ways, like Sanji comes out of the kitchen like, Nami Swan, I made you a chocolate mousse, here you go, oh my god, you're so adorable, and he spins away into the kitchen, like, that's like a comedic kind of thing, like, oh, Sanji, you're such a horn dog, or whatever. Brook comes up and it's just like, Robin-san, can I see your panties? Like, something like that, it's played for laughs or anything like that, but what I'm trying to get across here is I don't think Oda is ever going to have like a serious scene where Sanji and Nami sit down and they, Sanji like genuinely confesses his feelings for her, and they actually talk about their relationship and where it's going. Like, that is probably never going to happen in the One Piece world, okay? And I think that's a smart move on Oda. I think that's the smart, best way to do it. In another SBS, I don't have it here, but I've referenced it before. It was the same SBS where Oda is talking about, like, the fact that Nami is sexual desire of many men all over the world. Somebody basically asked Oda, like, are you cool with the fact that Nami is being, enjoyed by men and probably some women all over the world, probably right now as we speak? And Oda's response to that is like, hey, listen, everything in the world of manga, everything that I create for this story, it's basically just merch. So it's not really, it would be rather unprofessional of me to tell you what you are and what you are not allowed to enjoy from my work. It's not like Oda's like, I created Nami, oh my god, people are looking at her and drawing doujins and fan art of her in these sexual poses. How dare you pervert my pure drawing with something like that. No, Oda doesn't give a crap. Oda's pretty chill with this, and he's just like, that's just how it goes. That's how merchandise sells. That's how the world works, okay? I put it out there, and people are fans of my series, and that's basically what he said. He's like, I'm just happy you guys are reading my manga. I'm just happy you guys are supporting me, purchasing my books, and reading and enjoying the story. So what if you take Nami and Robin and you make them extremely sexualized, and here's a freaking hentai where I don't mind it. Go ahead, have fun, do whatever you need to do, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys, how different do you think One Piece would be? And I know it's kind of a hard hypothetical, but because there's so much ingrained in the story already, but how different do you think One Piece would have been if Oda took it maybe a more like Mashima route, like in Fairy Tail? Like from the very beginning, like as soon as like East Blue started and everything, like Oda like locked it in, like, yeah, Sanji and Nami are going to be a couple. And then like slowly throughout the course of the series, their relationship deepened more and more and more in each arc, to the point where like there's a scene where I think in Fairy Tail, I believe it's a like a dream sequence. It's not like real life, but there's a dream sequence that Lucy sees Gajiel and Levi just kissing in the middle of Fairy Tail, just like making out heavy, hot and heavy. Like, can you imagine if that happened in One Piece? Like, even if it was just a fantasy, even if it wasn't even real, if Usopp wakes up one night and Usopp's like really tired, he's been like working on a new invention all night and he's like really drowsy, and he opens up a door and he thinks he sees Sanji and Nami just making out at the aquarium, and Usopp's like, huh? And he rubs his eyes and it's just like it's just a pair of kissing fish in the tank or something. He's like, oh, right, oh man, I'm tired. I need to get to sleep. Even if it was something like that, like played for a joke, the fandom would explode. They would be like, oh my god, what? No! I mean, I would be like, yes, yes, yes. I freaked out a few cover pages ago when we got to see that one where Zoro and Sanji are asleep on the Thousand Sunny and they're dreaming about defeating one another. And in Zoro's fantasy, he defeated Sanji, and then Chopper is like praising him, like, yay, Zoro, good job. And then in Sanji's fantasy, he takes out Zoro, he's defeated in the background, and then Nami comes up and like hugs him. It's like, oh, Sanji, you strapping man, you defeated him. You are clearly the better person. And I was like, oh, even that is, ooh, But can you imagine if he did that kind of stuff? Like, would that lessen the series at all? Like, I don't know. I mean, you can make an argument that, like, that would bog it all down, because at least the way Oda does it this way, we're focused on the plot. We're focused on the adventure. Like I said earlier in other videos, I would prefer maybe a little bit more personal time with the Straw Hats just to get to know their dynamic a little better. But the way the story is flowing right now, I don't see a problem with that. It's just like, okay, here's the objective. Like, right now, we're in Wano. Our objective is to take down Kaido and, free Wano and part of the rebellion and gather allies and the samurai and all that stuff. Like, that's our overall arching goal right now. But we're also going to include some humor in there, some other character development from characters we haven't seen in a while. We'll sprinkle in a few fights, like, boom, Sanji has the raid suit. Boom, he's fighting Page 1, you know? Boom, now he's sneaking in bathhouses and stuff, and all this is going on, building up until eventually we're going to get the big epic fight. And when we do get the big epic fight, it's probably just going to be focused on that big epic fight for a couple of dozen chapters, you know? So yeah, that's the way Oda does it now. And if you were trying to mix in, like, relationship drama, you know, in the background of that, like, yeah, I could see how that could bog that down, especially if he went a route with it where it's like, oh yeah, Sanji and Nami were together for 400 chapters, but then they went through this breakup, and then it was this other person that they were into. Like, yeah, that would be a little bit too high school drama for my One Piece. I really wouldn't care for that very much, you know? So, yeah, I could see, like, this is... I posed a question... last year, I did a video talking about female designs in One Piece, the overly sexualized way that Oda draws his females, and that's from the SBS I just referenced. I talked about, like, would One Piece be as popular if his females were not overly sexualized in that way? And I basically came to the conclusion that, like, in terms of the merchandise and everything, it's very likely that might be like less than what it is right now. Because just think for a second about all of, like, the figurines and the merchandise that have Nami and Robin all over it in super, like, sexy positions and everything. If Oda drew them in a more, like, just, not just them in particular, but just all of his females in a more, realistic way. Like, he doesn't have, like, the super freaking hourglass figure pronounced, and or their boobs were, like, normal sizes. That would probably, lessen the merchandise sales from where we're at right now, I would assume. So if Oda did that, like, I think One Piece would still be a very popular series, but I could see people like, man, I really wish Oda would just focus on the battles and not with this freaking romance crap. I think Oda basically had to make a decision at the beginning of the story, is like, do I want this to be a shonen, like, battle adventure manga, or do I want this to be a shonen romance manga? Like, maybe he thought combining the two, maybe some authors could do it, but maybe he felt like that's not my thing. And if you read Oda's previous works, like the one-shots he's done, like Monsters or anything like that, he doesn't really focus on the romance aspect too much. It's like, I'm doing shonen, I'm doing adventure, I'm trying to tell this story. I mean, like, yeah, there are characters that get together in One Piece, sure, like Mrs. Monday and Mr. Nine. Those are the only two examples I have right there. Oh, no, Baby 5 and Sai, because I just made a video about Sai earlier this week. They got married. So it is present. He does have it, but I think he stays away as, like, I'm just going to keep away from the main cast with that. Now, with that all being said, we're talking about the way the story exists right now, because it's still ongoing and we're still in the middle of everything. Personally, and you can disagree if you'd want, but personally, when the series is winding down and we're nearing the end, I don't know if Oda's going to do, like, a flash forward, like the series is just going to end with the Straw Hats at their current ages, or if we're going to, like, the last chapter of One Piece or the last couple of chapters, like, we flash forward to 10 years in the future or 20 years in the future. I don't know what he's going to plan on doing. But whatever we get, I would kind of like some closure on, like, the Sanji Nami thing. Because, even if it's going to be like something subtle, like we cut to 10 years in the future and we see Sanji and Nami they're hanging out together or they're living together or something. Like, nothing else beyond that. We don't need to see pictures of their wedding. We don't need to see little children running around. We don't need to see that. Just, like, 10 years later, they're together, make your own assumptions on that. Basically, that's the way that I would like it, at least because some closure on that whole thing, because Sanji very clearly has feelings for her, so I was like, are we going to end the series on a goofy note, or are we going to end it on, like, a somewhat serious note? Is Brooke really going to see Nami's panties? These are the questions I need answers to, Like, at the end of the series, Nami's just like, you know what, Brooke? And she just opens up her dresser drawer, like, here. just throws them right in his face. Are you happy now? Yes, Nami-san, I am very happy. just throws it in his head and just walks away. And just twirls his cane as he walks into the distance. But yeah, let me know about that below on how you feel, if One Piece would be different if Oda just amped up the romance factor a little bit, or if he amped up the romance factor a lot, how different it would be. Feel free to tell me which pairings you personally like. I think we've all made it very clear which pairing I enjoy. Also, the Frankie Robin thing, I'm also a fan of that as well. I don't know who I ship Brook or Chopper with, so, you know, there, maybe the Chopper Zoro thing, because he had that fantasy, he had that dream where he defeated Sanji and Chopper was in the background, so he either really just loves Chopper's praise, maybe is sort of like a little brother, an older brother likes it when their little brother, like, oh yeah, big bro, you're the best ever. I'm like, damn straight I am. You know, like, you just like that positive information, or maybe he's into that. I don't know. Okay. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Signing out. It's really not that great.